hasn't fully broken yet, but the sky is already busy with sound. The river below is swollen from spring rain, its brown surface sliding fast between shattered stone abutments where a bridge once stood. German engineers had done their work well here. Charges placed deep into the supports, timed detonators, a clean collapse. By every rule of military engineering, this crossing should be unusable for days, weeks even. Yet on the western bank, something impossible is happening. Steel clanks against steel in the half-light. Boots splash through mud. Men grunt in rhythm lifting sections that look too light to matter and too small to span anything this wide. There are no cranes, no heavy machinery, just trucks backed up to the tree line and soldiers working by hand. A British Army sapper, Corporal Alan Reeves of the Royal Engineers, wipes rain from his eyes and checks his watch. He has been awake for nearly 30 hours. Uniform is soaked. His hands are numb, none of that matters. Keep it coming, he calls. Panels up front first, pins tight. The Germans on the far side of the river can hear it. Lieutenant Karl-Heinz Vogel, attached to a Wehrmacht engineering battalion, peers through binoculars from a camouflaged observation point. He expected smoke, maybe confusion, engineers probing the wreckage, marking sites for ferries or pontoons. That's how this usually goes. Destroy the bridge, delay the armor, buy time. Instead, he sees a lattice of steel taking shape where empty air should be. That's not possible, he mutters. Vogel lowers the glasses, rubs his eyes, then looks again. The structure is unmistakable now. Rectangular steel panels bolted together into trusses, transoms laid across like ribs. It's rising outward from the Allied bank, section by section, pushed forward on rollers. He has seen something like it before, training manuals, British improvisations from earlier in the war. But never this fast, never under fire. Back on the riverbank, the first German artillery rounds begin to fall. Dirt geysers up behind the engineers, shrapnel snaps through the trees. Reeves doesn't stop. Down, someone shouts. They crouch, helmets low, hands still gripping the steel. When the shelling lifts, they're back on their feet immediately. This is not a bridge built to last decades. It's not elegant. It doesn't pretend to be permanent. It exists for one purpose only, to get tanks across this river today. The Bailey Bridge, named after its designer, Donald Bailey, is a marvel of ruthless simplicity. No special tools, no welding, every piece man-portable. Panels pinned together, strength multiplied by repetition. If the span is longer, add more panels. If the load is heavier, double or triple the trusses. Lego for war, designed so that exhausted men under fire can still assemble it correctly. Reeves supervises as the nose of the bridge reaches out over open water. The roller system groans as weight shifts forward. One mistake here, one loose pin, and the entire structure could twist and drop into the river. Easy, he says. Easy, now lock it. A hammer strikes steel. The pin seats. The bridge creeps forward again. Behind them, engines idle. Sherman tanks wait in a muddy orchard, crews sitting tensely on hulls, smoking, watching the engineers with something close to reverence. Armored doctrine says momentum is everything. Stop the tanks and the enemy regroups. Let them roll and defenses crack. The Germans know this too. Vogel watches the span reach the far bank. He feels something cold settle in his stomach. His men blew the bridge perfectly. The calculations were sound. The delay should have been decisive. Instead, the Allies have simply replaced it. He radios rearward. Enemy constructing prefabricated bridge. Heavy armor likely to cross within the hour. There's a pause on the line, then disbelief. Within the hour, impossible. Vogel doesn't argue, he just keeps watching. The final sections lock into place. Decking goes down, wooden planks slapped across the transoms, nailed fast. The bridge shudders once as its own weight settles, then it holds. Reeves steps back, chest heaving, and raises his arm. The first Sherman lurches forward. Tracks clatter onto steel. The bridge flexes just slightly like a living thing bracing itself. Engineers watch every joint, every panel. If something fails, it will fail now. It doesn't. The tank rolls across the river, exhaust coughing, commander scanning the far bank. A second tank follows, then a third. The crossing that should have stopped an army has delayed it by less than a morning. On the German side, Vogel lowers his binoculars slowly. They're not stopping, he says to no one in particular. They're not stopping at all. And this is only the first river. The Sherman's tracks vanish into the trees on the far bank, and the river, once a defensive line, becomes just another obstacle already behind them. June 7, 1944, Normandy interior. By mid-morning, the Bailey Bridge is no longer a marvel. It is infrastructure. British and Canadian armor streams across in columns, tanks followed by half-tracks, fuel trucks, ambulances, artillery pieces. Infantry jog beside the road, boots clattering on steel decking that still smells of fresh-cut wood and oil. The bridge flexes continuously under weight, but it does not fail. It was never meant to look reassuring. It was meant to work. Corporal Reeves and his men are already packing up. There is no ceremony, no photographs, a brief check of pins and bearings, then tools are thrown back into maintenance. Reeves lights a cigarette with shaking hands and finally allows himself to sit. They will do this again today, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, because Normandy is dense with rivers. The Germans had planned for that. Across northern France, German engineers had prepared systematic demolitions, stone bridges wired weeks in advance, steel spans rigged with shaped charges, retreat routes calculated to slow any advance to a crawl. Every blown crossing was supposed to buy time, hours for infantry to dig in, days for armor to reposition. What they did not account for was speed measured not in days, but in hours. By June 9th, German after-action reports begin to repeat the same phrase. Enemy bridge restored overnight, sometimes faster. Near the Vire River, a Bailey bridge is completed in less than 6 hours under intermittent artillery fire. At another crossing near Bayeux, American engineers assemble a reinforced double truss bridge capable of carrying fully loaded tank destroyers. Finished before dawn, traffic moving by sunrise. German field commanders are confused, angry, suspicious. One officer accuses his subordinates of failing to destroy bridges properly. Another orders larger charges, deeper craters, secondary demolitions. None of it solves the problem, because the Allies are no longer dependent on what already exists. They are bringing the crossings with them. Captain James Holloway of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers learns this lesson personally near St. Lo. His unit reaches a river crossing that German troops have not only destroyed but mined thoroughly. The banks are cratered. The water churns with debris. Under older doctrine, this would be a delay measured in days. Instead, Holloway orders trucks forward. Bailey components slide off tailgates into the mud. Men form chains without being told. Panels go together by feel, transoms slot in. The process is so standardized that new replacements, men who joined the unit less than a month ago, move as smoothly as veterans. German mortars begin walking toward them. Holloway does not order them to stop. The bridge is launched from the near bank, shoved forward inch by inch, rollers squealing under weight. A mortar round lands close enough to spray mud across the decking. One man goes down, stunned, blood running from his ear. Someone drags him clear. The bridge keeps moving. By the time German observers realize what is happening, the span is already half complete. A lieutenant in a Panzer Grenadier unit radios his battalion headquarters. "They are building a bridge under fire," he says. "They are not waiting." The reply is silence. German artillery adjusts. Shells walk closer. One hits the far bank, collapsing earth into the water. The engineers compensate without discussion, shifting the angle, locking the next panel tighter. Holloway watches the structure grow and feels a strange confidence settle in. He has built bridges in training, on exercises, in calm weather with time to spare. This is different. This is industrialized persistence. The first vehicle across is not a tank, but a jeep, sent deliberately, almost casually, as if to prove a point. It reaches the far bank, turns, and waves back. Minutes later, armor follows. The Germans withdraw again. They do not lack courage. They lack answers. By late June, German intelligence officers begin circulating photographs, grainy aerial shots of lattice bridges spanning rivers where none existed days before. Engineers study them with frowns, measuring truss depth, counting panels. Some recognize the design. "Bailey," one officer says quietly during a briefing in Caen. "The British used them in Africa." "Yes," another replies. "But not like this." What is new is not the bridge itself. It is the doctrine surrounding it. Allied armies no longer pause to consolidate at rivers. They cross, reform, and continue forward in one continuous motion. Supply follows immediately. Fuel trucks roll within hours. Artillery is in place the same day. Momentum becomes cumulative. Every blown bridge fails to slow the advance, and every failure costs the Germans something they cannot replace: time. An Oberst in the German 7th Army writes in his diary, "We destroy the crossings perfectly. The enemy replaces them imperfectly, but fast enough, and speed defeats perfection." By July, German units begin retreating preemptively from river lines they once would have defended. There is no point in holding a bank if the enemy can erase it overnight. For Allied engineers, the work never stops. Bridges go up. Bridges come down. Some are dismantled and reused farther forward. Others are left behind, rattling under endless traffic, scarred with shrapnel but still standing. They are not symbols, they are tools, but to the men watching them appear out of nothing, especially those trying to stop them, they feel like something else entirely, like inevitability made of steel. We destroy the crossings perfectly. The enemy replaces them imperfectly, but fast enough, and speed defeats perfection. July 1944, somewhere east of St. Lo. The river ahead is narrow, barely 20 meters across, but it might as well be a canyon. Its stone bridge lies folded into the water, arches broken cleanly by demolition charges. German rearguard troops have already pulled back to the next ridge line. They did everything right, blew the crossing, laid mines along the banks, and still the Allied column does not stop. Lieutenant Frank Delaney, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, stands knee-deep in mud with a clipboard pressed against his chest, scanning the far bank through binoculars. He is 24 years old and looks older by a decade. His uniform is stiff with sweat and dried river silt. Behind him, trucks idle in a tight line loaded with bridge sections stacked like oversized scaffolding. "Same drill," Delaney says. Single truss, get the rollers in place." No one asks why. No one asks how long, they already know the answer. The first panel goes together in less than a minute. Pins slide home with practice strikes. Transoms drop into place. The bridge nose creeps forward over the water, balanced on rollers scavenged from the wreckage of the old crossing. German artillery fires once. The shell lands wide. They do not fire again, because by the time spotters relay corrections, the bridge will already be there. This is what has changed the war in Western Europe, not one bridge, but repetition. The relentless certainty that any river, no matter how thoroughly destroyed, is only a temporary inconvenience. German units feel it everywhere. In headquarters near Avranches, a Wehrmacht logistics officer spreads maps across a table, red grease pencil lines marking retreat routes. Every one of them crosses water. "We cannot hold these positions," he says flatly. "They cross faster than we can reposition." An older officer snaps back, "Then destroy the crossings more thoroughly." "They are not using our crossings anymore," the logistics officer replies. "They are bringing their own." Silence follows, because that truth has no countermeasure. By the time Operation Cobra breaks the hedgerow stalemate, Allied engineers are moving as fast as the armor, sometimes faster. Bridge units leapfrog forward, dismantling spans behind them to reuse farther ahead. Bailey bridges that crossed one river in June are relayed across another in July, dented, patched, and still serviceable. They are designed to forgive abuse. Steel panels bent by shellfire are hammered back into shape. Missing components are replaced from standardized stock. Nothing is precious except time. German engineers understand the implications immediately. Their doctrine has always treated rivers as natural breaks on mechanized warfare. Destroy the bridges and you force the enemy to pause. Pauses create opportunities, counterattacks, reinforcement, stabilization. The Bailey Bridge eliminates the pause. An engineer from the German organization Tot writes later, "We were trained to think in terms of obstacles. The enemy had removed the concept of obstacles entirely." In August 1944, during the rapid advance across France, this becomes devastatingly clear. Near the Seine, German forces rush to blow crossings ahead of the Allied push. Explosions echo up and down the river. Smoke rises. Retreating units breathe easier, convinced they have finally created a barrier too wide, too vital to bypass quickly. They are wrong. Allied engineers arrive within hours. The Seine is broader than anything they have crossed before, its current strong, its banks churned by retreating traffic and demolition debris. But the process is the same. More panels, more trusses, heavier reinforcement. Bridges built not in one span, but in segments, connected like steel snakes reaching across the water. Pontoon bridges supplement Baileys where necessary. Ferries run while bridges are assembled. Traffic never fully stops. German aerial reconnaissance reports the impossible. "Multiple bridge crossings established overnight," one report reads. "Enemy armor and supply vehicles moving continuously." Continuously. That word appears again and again. The psychological effect is corrosive. German units retreat expecting safety at the next river, only to find Allied tanks already crossing behind them. Commanders begin to doubt their own maps, their own assumptions. Rivers that once defined defensive lines now mean nothing. They are simply places where the engineers go to work. Lieutenant Delaney crosses another completed bridge late one evening, riding in the passenger seat of a deuce and a half. He watches the steel decking blur beneath him, feels the vibration through the truck's frame. He knows this bridge will probably be gone in a week, dismantled, reused, forgotten. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it exists now. Behind him, supply trucks roll. Ahead of him, artillery flashes in the distance. The war does not pause to admire the bridge. It uses it and moves on. German soldiers watch from tree lines and ruined farmhouses, stunned not by the bridge's strength but by its inevitability. Destroy one crossing and another appears. Blow that and another follows. There is no dramatic moment of realization, just a slow, grinding understanding. They are not fighting an army that needs permission to move. They are fighting one that has removed geography from the equation, and when rivers stop meaning anything, retreat becomes permanent. They are not fighting an army that needs permission to move. They are fighting one that has removed geography from the equation. September 1944. The outskirts of Aachen, Germany. The rivers are smaller here, but the stakes are larger. This is no longer occupied France. This is German soil. Every crossing now carries symbolic weight, and German engineers are under strict orders. Destroy everything. No delays, no half measures. If it spans water, it comes down. The Worm River is shallow, muddy, unimpressive, and lethal as an obstacle. Its bridges have been demolished down to the pilings. Rubble clogs the banks. Mines are buried under the churned earth. Machine gun nests cover the approaches. Oberleutnant Ernst Kruger, a combat engineer officer, inspects the wreckage with professional satisfaction. He calculates load limits, current speed, bank angles. This crossing, he believes, will hold. It does not. By mid-afternoon, American engineers arrive. They do not rush. They do not reconnoiter for long. They have crossed dozens of rivers like this in the past 3 months. The pattern is ingrained. Captain Harold Mitchell, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, points once and speaks calmly. Same setup, triple single truss, armor crossing by nightfall. Kruger watches through binoculars as steel appears from trucks like a magician's trick, panels unloaded, stacked, assembled. No improvisation, no visible uncertainty. German mortars open fire almost immediately. The Americans do not scatter. They work faster. Men crouch between shell bursts, lifting panels, hammering pins, rolling the bridge forward inch by inch. A shell lands close enough to tear a panel from a soldier's hands. Another man takes it without comment and slots it into place. Kruger feels something unfamiliar rise in his chest, not fear but disbelief. They are ignoring us, he says. His artillery officer corrects him. No, they are accounting for us. By dusk, the bridge reaches the far bank. A single machine gun opens fire. American infantry responds with disciplined bursts. The gun falls silent. An M4 Sherman rolls forward as if on cue. The bridge flexes, holds. Kruger lowers his binoculars. He does not need them anymore. This is the moment German engineers finally understand what they are facing. Not better bridges, better time management. The Allies have industrialized urgency. Their engineering units are synchronized with infantry and armor to the minute. While German doctrine still treats engineering as preparation, the Allies treat it as movement itself. Bridges are no longer objectives, they are steps. Across the Western Front, this pattern. At the Meuse, at the Moselle, at countless unnamed streams that never appear in history books. German demolitions buy hours, sometimes minutes, rarely days. Each delay costs the Germans fuel, cohesion, and experienced men. Retreats become chaotic. Supply lines unravel. Units arrive late to defensive positions that no longer exist. German field reports grow increasingly blunt. Enemy engineering capacity exceeds our ability to deny crossings. We can no longer rely on rivers as defensive lines. Destruction of bridges no longer guarantees delay. These are not exaggerations. They are admissions. In October, during operations near the Roa River, Allied engineers complete multiple Bailey bridges under sustained fire, some spanning over 200 feet, reinforced to carry the heaviest vehicles in the arsenal. Sections are pre-assembled off-site, trucked forward, and launched with mechanical precision. German counterattacks target the bridges directly. Some succeed. Spans collapse, decking burns. By morning, new bridges stand in their place. This is the final breaking point. German commanders realize that even success is temporary. Destroying a bridge now means only that another will replace it, often stronger, often better positioned. Attrition shifts direction. The engineers, once a supporting arm, become a decisive weapon. Captain Mitchell stands on yet another completed crossing as tanks rumble past, mud and oil streaking the steel. He doesn't watch them for long. He's already thinking ahead, about the next river, the next delay to erase. Behind him, a German village burns quietly. Ahead of him, the road continues uninterrupted. This is how the Allies win the ground war in Europe, not with dramatic breakthroughs alone, but with thousands of small refusals to stop moving. Steel laid against time. And time once seized, never given back. Steel laid against time. And time once seized, never given back. March 7, 1945. Remagen, Germany, the Rhine River. The Rhine is not supposed to be crossed like this. It is wide, cold, fast-moving, Germany's last great natural barrier in the West. For centuries, armies have treated it as a final line, a moat guarding the heart of the country. German planners have built doctrine around it. Fortifications, demolition plans. Retreat schedules timed down to the hour. Every bridge is wired. Every crossing is meant to vanish. And yet on this gray afternoon, the Ludendorff Bridge still stands. Smoke drifts across its stone towers. Explosions echo in the hills as retreating German units rush east. The bridge shakes under sporadic artillery fire, but it does not fall. Charges have been placed, but something has gone wrong. Faulty wiring, damaged detonators, rushed execution under air attack. American infantrymen of the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion stare at it from the West Bank in disbelief. Lieutenant Carl Timmerman lowers his binoculars slowly. "That bridge should be gone," he says. "It is. There is no time to analyze why." "Tanks forward," someone shouts. One shouts. But it is not the tanks that move first. It is the engineers. Men sprint onto the bridge under fire, boots clanging against steel decking as German machine guns rake the span. Plumes of dust erupt from the towers. Explosives detonate prematurely, ripping holes in the roadway but failing to collapse the structure. The bridge groans. It holds. This is not a Bailey bridge, but everything the Allies have learned from Bailey doctrine applies instantly. Damage control, redundancy, speed over elegance. Engineers scramble to shore up weak points, laying planks, reinforcing beams, marking safe paths. Within hours, the first American armor crosses the Rhine. German command is stunned. For months, they had relied on the Rhine as a certainty. If all else failed, the river would stop the enemy. They could regroup, reorganize, prolong the war. The illusion dies at Remagen, and what follows makes it final. As soon as the crossing is secured, Allied engineers begin building Bailey bridges alongside the damaged Ludendorff span. Not tomorrow, not next week. That night, steel panels arrive by truck. Trusses rise under floodlights. Pontoon bridges stretch across the current like skeletal shadows. The Rhine's symbol, boundary, final defense becomes just another engineering problem. By March 10th, multiple crossings are operational. German officers watch from the East Bank as American traffic pours across, tanks, trucks, artillery, fuel convoys, ambulances. There is no pause, no regrouping, no dramatic halt. The war floods eastward. A German staff officer later writes, "We believed the Rhine would give us time. The enemy gave it no meaning." This is the culmination of everything that began months earlier in Normandy. The Bailey Bridge was never about crossing one river. It was about eliminating the idea of waiting. Every destroyed bridge across France, Belgium, and Germany taught the same lesson. Denial only works if the enemy accepts delay. The Allies never did. By the spring of 1945, German engineers know the truth better than anyone. You can destroy a bridge perfectly. You can crater roads, mine banks, collapse stone and steel. But if the enemy arrives with crossings already packed on trucks, already rehearsed, standardized, and drilled, then destruction becomes irrelevant. The Americans and British did not out-engineer Germany by being more clever. They did it by being faster than doubt. By the time German forces attempt to establish new defensive lines east of the Rhine, Allied engineers are already there, throwing bridges across tributaries, canals, drainage ditches, anything that might slow the advance. The war's final months are no longer shaped by geography. They are shaped by endurance, and endurance belongs to the side that can replace what is destroyed overnight. They are shaped by endurance, and endurance belongs to the side that can replace what is destroyed overnight. April 1945, Western Germany. By now, the sound of steel being unloaded from trucks is as familiar as artillery fire. Bailey bridge panels clatter onto roads, riverbanks, bombed-out villages. Engineers move without urgency and without hesitation because the system no longer requires either. Every man knows his place. Every motion has been rehearsed dozens of times, sometimes under fire, sometimes in darkness, sometimes while exhausted beyond what training manuals ever imagined. To German engineers watching from the other side, this is the final realization. It was never about a single bridge. It was about a philosophy of war. In post-war interrogations, German officers return to the same theme again and again. They speak of Allied material superiority, yes, but more often they speak of continuity. Of momentum that never broke. Of an enemy that refused to acknowledge obstacles as anything more than temporary inconveniences. One former Wehrmacht engineer states it plainly. "We destroyed bridges to create pauses. The enemy had removed pauses from warfare." That removal reshaped the campaign. Allied armor never waited for ideal conditions. Supply lines never lagged far behind the front. Infantry were never left exposed on a riverbank for days. Every successful crossing compounded the next, accelerating the collapse of German resistance. The Bailey Bridge made retreat dangerous. It made delay expensive, and it made defensive planning obsolete faster than German command could adapt. American after-action reports treat the bridges almost casually. They are listed alongside fuel consumption and vehicle losses, just another logistical factor. That casualness is itself revealing. When something works perfectly, it stops being remarkable. By the end of the war, Allied engineers have built thousands of Bailey bridges across Europe, some lasting days, others still standing years later. Many are dismantled, reused, forgot. Their value was never in permanence, it was in immediacy. German engineers, trained in precision and permanence, struggle to reconcile this. Their bridges were meant to endure. The Allied bridges were meant to exist exactly as long as necessary, and not a second longer. That difference mattered. Because wars are not won by structures that last forever. They are won by systems that keep moving. When American troops enter central Germany in April, they cross rivers that no longer appear in situation reports. Streams are crossed without comment. Canals are bridged before German units can even mark them as defensive lines. The map stops being relevant. A U.S. armored officer remarks to an engineer, half joking, "Don't bother telling me where the rivers are anymore. Just tell me where you want the bridge." And the engineers oblige. This is why German forces begin surrendering in large numbers, not always because they are defeated tactically, but because the strategic picture has collapsed completely. There is nowhere left to regroup, no line that holds, no delay that lasts. Every night more steel appears. Every morning more armor crosses. The bridges are not dramatic. They do not feature prominently in victory speeches or parade footage. But without them, the advance would have stalled again and again, and every stall would have cost lives. In the end, the Bailey Bridge does not win the war alone, but it ensures the war keeps moving forward when the enemy expects it to stop. That is why German engineers could not believe what they were seeing. They had done everything right. They destroyed the crossings, and the crossings came back anyway, overnight. End.